Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you people are here. Okay, so I'll be discussing about the influence of mutation in drug discovery. So with the rise of COVID, everyone is interested in the discovery field, that too especially in the computer-aided drug discovery. So we need to know what are the difficulties or what are the backlogs which are there in the current drug discovery field, as well as how this mutations are going to influence this drug discovery in addition to what are the parameters which are in the science field earlier. So before we move into this, we need to know what is mutation and what is drug discovery. Because without knowing these two key aspects, we will not be able to know how it is going to influence. So first, I'll be detailing about the different types of mutation, what is mutation, what are the influence. So I'll tell you what are the mutations, what are the types of mutation, what are the things that are going to influence the mutation, how the mutation is going to occur, and what are the process are there in this drug discovery. In particular, we are going to see what are the processes are going to be there in the computer-aided drug designing. So we'll try to interlink how this mutations are going to influence the drug discovery process. So the first thing is I need to tell about the disclaimer. I may not be covering all the important points here because this mutation and uh, sequencing thing is gradually evolving with the sequencing techniques like your NGS or Sanger technique. So I might miss some important points. The presentation might in all the relevant points, but it might not be up to date. It might not be the data till yesterday. It might be something little older also. And this presentation as online data also, in addition to our own findings, these data sole credits are dedicated to the original authors and not to myself. So first we need to know what are mutations. Changes in the nucleotide sequence of DNA are known to be mutations. So nucleotides are going to be the building blocks for the DNA, and amino acids are going to be the building blocks for the proteins. So in the central dogma of life, this DNA is going to translate into mRNA, then there's going to be the rise of proteins. So when there's going to be change in the DNA, this is going to be called as mutations, and this can be occurring in somatic cells as well as in the gametes. When it's going to be occurring in the somatic cells, that is the body cells, it cannot be passing through the offsprings. But when they're going to occur in the gametes, there might be the chances of it might be passing through the offspring also. So if parent is going to have some mutation, it might be the reason for the disease or disorder in the fetus also. So there are two different types of causes for this mutation. One is inherited. That is, while birth itself, this baby might be having this mutation. This might be due to the parent having the mutation, or parent might be the carrier of the mutation. When I say parent is the carrier of the mutation, the parent might not express the mutation within themselves, but they might be carried from the earlier generation, and they'll be transferring the disorder to the fetus. So might be the grandparents might have the disorder, the parent might be the just a carrier, and they might give to the child. So this is going to be inherited. In some cases of inheritation, parents might have the disease and disorder that can be already transferred to the fetus as well. Because even today in news, you can see that COVID case in India, they have seen the first vertical transfer. When you say vertical transfer or inherited, the baby which is born as the COVID, which is been infected in the parent also. So it can be inherited also in this case. In some case, it can be acquired. The parents or the grandparents might not have experienced any mutations in them. They might not have any disorders or disease, but due to some environmental change or some mistakes in DNA might happen in the fetus, in the child, and it might get a disease or disorder. So when I say environmental factors, it might be due to various factors, like they might be exposed to ultraviolet radiations, they might be exposed to some chemicals, they might have some chemical solvents of within the food. So there are different reasons for these mutations. So when I say this mistakes in the DNA copies as well, so there will be a question that whether these mutations are helpful or harmful. When I ask this question, these mutations might be all three categories. This might be neutral, this might be helpful, and this might be harmful. When you see the survival of fittest in the life scenario over the evolution period, mutations are the one which are making the life to be a survival of fittest. Every time when you make a uh, when a process is undergoing a change, when environment is undergoing a change, our body makes mutations within ourselves to sustain or to make ourselves ready for to face the challenges in the environment. So this is going to be a positive effect of the mutation. I'll tell you in depth again in the upcoming slides. When I say the mutations are neutral, these mutations might be inside the body. Some people might have 6 fingers, some people might have 5 fingers. This is mainly based on their mutations in their body. But the 6 finger or 5 finger is not going to make a big change in their life scenario. So this is going to be a neutral phenomena with the mutations. And there might be the other phenomena of mutations being harmful also. So this when there is going to be a severe mutations, they might cause you cancer. They might cause you several genetic disorders like leukemia, skin cancer, alkaptonuria. A number of diseases are being identified today based on the repairs in these mutations. So again, whatever I discussed previously, so that's going to be the same here. So how to classify these mutations? These mutations can be broadly classified into 2 different categories. One can be based on the functionality, and second can be based on the structural things. So when I classify these mutations based on functions, they can have a harmful function, they can have a beneficial function, and they can have a neutral function. When I say the classification at the structure level, in the structural level, it can be a point mutation, it can be a frame shift mutation, it can be a silent mutation, it can be a missense mutation, or it can be a nonsense mutation. I'll tell all this detail in the upcoming slides. So this is an example, very good example of a positive mutation. So if you see these 2 birds, figure A and B, the bird in the figure A has a smaller beak, so it cannot get its prey. Whereas the figure B, the beak of the bird is having bigger in size so that it can easily get its prey. It's very similar to the Charles Darwin's theory with the example of giraffe's neck, how the evolution of giraffe neck has grown so taller to avoid the when there is no grasslands. So they had to catch up the trees. So the neck has been evolved. So I can say that this might be the native form of the wild type, native or wild type, the natural condition. Since it want to get its prey every time after generation, this beak might have evolved. Might have. I'm telling you this is not the reason, but I'm telling you what could be the positive effect. So with this evaluation of this longer beak, this bird can insert its beak into the wooden holes and it can get its food so that it can survive for longer time, because without food it cannot survive, right? So this can be the positive or helpful effect of the mutation. The second case, as we have discussed earlier, it's a neutral. So we can see n number of lovebirds here. These lovebirds are of different colors in sense their genetic makeup and the DNA pattern is entirely different. Not entirely different. The color codes of this DNA pattern is entirely different. So this color, white color, might give the different genetic pattern of DNA. This orange might give you different pattern of DNA. Blue might give different. The green might be different. So all this DNA genetic pattern is different, but they don't make any adverse effect or the positive effect on these birds. So they're just birds. They don't. This color doesn't have anything beneficial or adverse effect to these birds as well as to the people. So the third case is where we are more focusing on. So what happens when this mutation is harmful? Harmful in sense when it is going to give you some diseases or disorders. Okay, the most good example can be sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is due to the mutations in your common protein like HBB, where your red blood cells get shrinked. They are almost in the curved shape, or they are in the third phase moon shape, so that your normal red blood cells, which is spherical in shape, is being converted into your semicircle shape or the clone shape because of the mutations. So when this mutation is going to be there, it causes sickle cell anemia and people get ill affected. So this mutation might be harmful also. So this is your first class of distinguishing of your mutation. So your second classification comes under with the point mutation, substitutions, insertions, deletions, and frame shift. Okay, so this can be very well seen in this figure. When I say point mutation, the point is a single point, okay, single, where a single position is going to be changed. That is called a point mutation. Substitution is replacing of one amino acid to the other amino acid. Insertion in sense addition. insertion is nothing but addition of codon. Okay, when I say deletion, it's going to be the deletion of codon or subtraction of codon. Frame shift is something where we are going to have a translocation of these codons. Okay, so this is the thing which I was telling you earlier. This is a tripleted codon. Each tripleted codon is going to code for single amino acids. These codons are going to give you amino acids, and these amino acids are going to make up your protein. So these proteins will be later used in the drug discovery process. Okay, so we'll see this case. The normal, it is AUG, GCC, TC, TGC, AAA, CGC, TGG. Okay, so each tripleted codon is giving you one amino acids. Okay, for example, AUG is giving methionine. Okay, I'm not sure whether this tripleted codon are right thing, but this is just for your example. Okay, we need to cross verify it later. I'll just tell you what is the meaning here. Okay, when I say silent mutation compared to the normal mutation, the C in the sixth position is converted to T. You can find it out. Okay, rest all are same. Only the C is converted to T, and the amino acid is same. There is no change in amino acid. We are getting the same amino acid as in the normal type. We have methionine, alanine, cysteine, lysine, arginine, and tryptophan. This is exactly same as a normal one. But when you say nonsense mutation, you're going to get a stop codon. When I say stop codon, there is no going to be a protein translation anymore. Protein has been truncated, or protein has been chopped there, and we don't have full protein there. Okay. For example, if you see the C in the ninth codon is being converted to A in the ninth codon. Okay. So methionine, alanine, cysteine, lysine, arginine, tryptophan, which was there in the normal condition, is being chopped with only methionine and alanine. Because of this stop codon TGA, we don't have the entire protein sequence. When we don't have entire protein sequence, there might not be an entire protein formation, there might be a structure. If there is no going to be structure, you cannot go with the drug discovery process. In our study, the most common and most interesting one is missense mutation that we are going to focus. The role of missense mutation is it's going to be changing only one or two amino acids in a protein. Okay, it is not going to change the entire protein. It's not like a nonsense mutation. It is not going to chop the entire protein. In the frame shift, if we see, there might be a change of many amino acids when you see this other three examples. Okay, I'll tell you again. But in this case of missense mutation, here you'll have only one change in the amino acid. When you see the entire protein, there might be one mutation, or sometimes people are reading about a double and triple mutation nowadays, but there are not going to be the entire chopping of mutation and chopping of protein or change in the entire mutation. Okay, so it's going to be only one single amino acid is going to change. So methionine, alanine, cysteine in the normal is being changed to methionine, alanine, arginine. Okay, so the cysteine is being converted to arginine. So we will be interested to study what is the effect when there is a cysteine, what will the effect when there is a arginine, because this might be aliphatic, this might be aromatic, this might be bipolar, this might have some side chains, this might have hydrophobic bonds, this might have hydrogen bonds, but this might not have. If you consider the shape of arginine, arginine's shape is bigger than the cysteine, so it might have multiple interactions with the surrounding amino acids, whereas cysteine might not make such an interactions. So this will be the reason why you're going to get a normal person into your disorder patient. Okay, when you see the people with sickle cell anemia, disorders like breast cancer or lung cancer, this single mutation might play a serious effect. You might think whether the single thing will make an effect, but yes, I'll show you with upcoming examples. Okay, so this is the one with frame shift insertions and deletions. The entire protein sequence, entire amino acid sequence after a particular point will change. Okay, in the normal you have methionine, alanine, cysteine, lysine, arginine, tryptophan. But whereas here only methionine, alanine is being the common one with the normal. After that, everything is being changed. It's changed to glutamine, asparagine, and alanine. In this case, only methionine and alanine is same. The rest of the amino acids have been changed. Again, in the insertion and -1 deletion. So one insertion is there, one deletion is there. So entire amino acid is going to change, and entire protein structure is going to change. But in our case, we are going to focus only on the missense mutation. So I'll try to tell you in depth again. So this is the what which we are talking. So here you have the DNA antisense codon. So each triple letter codon will give you the will have the antisense standard with the template with the mRNA transcription. Once they make the translation, then they give you the polypeptide or the proteins. Okay, so in first case it's going to be same. It is going to be the second mRNA is going to be same. They give you some 5 amino acids: proline, glutamine, cysteine, and glycine. But when there's going to be change from T to A, again you get glutamine. I don't find any difference. CTC is glutamine, and again CTT, it's going to give you glutamine. So there is no difference between this normal gene and the substitution mutation. In this case, this called as no change mutation. When there is no change, you might not be having a disease, or you might not have expressed any disorders. There might be a mutation within you, but it will not express, it won't be adverse to you. Okay. In second case, the substitution mutation, where we was talking about the change in amino acid. Example, this CAC is giving you GUG, here CTC. Okay, this T is being converted to A here by the substitution, so it is giving you the other amino acid. Here it has given you glutamine, here it has given you arginine. So this one amino acid change can give you some effects. But if this is not going to give you the different amino acids, it might not give you effect. But when there is a change in amino acid level, it gives you some effect. Then this is a truncation. So when there is a stop codon in your substitution mutation, you get stop and you don't have any translation of proteins. The protein has been chopped. Your protein, glutamine, cysteine is there, and after glutamine, it comes to stop codon with ACT, and it's been chopped. Okay. So once you are clear with this all mutations, we'll be moving with the drug discovery process, so that it'll be easy for you people to understand what exactly happens. In the case of addition mutation, entire protein is changing after a particular mutation point. In the case of deletion, after a particular point, entire protein is going to change. It might give you improper protein. But in this most cases of addition and mutation, your DNA polymerase or the other enzymes tries to repair itself in most of the scenario. So once they try to repair itself, this expression reduces. Okay, because there is a repair mechanism which is in a body by nature itself. They try to repair the improper insertion or improper deletions of some mutations. So it's a very good repair mechanism within our body. So they try to give the proper protein formation after the particular point. So in this case, we have seen about the silent mutation. These are going to be the same amino acids. In the missense mutation, it's going to be the change of single amino acids. In the nonsense mutation, it's going to be the stop mutation, stop codon, and there's going to be a truncation of protein. That is a phenotypic effect of the mutations. We can see this Wikipedia page where they have listed about the series of major common disorders because of this mutation. Okay, this table shows you the major disorders, and when you see, everything contains point mutation. Point mutation is sense where we're telling about your missense mutation. A single point amino acid is being changed. When you see the Angelman syndrome, there's a point syndrome. When you see color blindness, it's a point syndrome. Point mutation is being occurred. In the cystic fibrosis, point mutation is there. In the familial hyperglycemia, there's a point mutation. You have hemophilia, point mutation. So many diseases. You can. There are a number of diseases being added every day with this use of NGS and other techniques, where people try to find out different mutations. They try to find tons and tons of mutations. They're depositing in the public databases, and they're reporting it to the reason of different disorders and diseases. Okay, so this is one good example, and this will be interesting for you people to understand what exactly the role of missense mutation can do. In this original sequence, if you see, it is going to be histidine. There is no change. There is a long chain of histidine is here. Because of this one A to C change, you get histidine, proline. Okay, and you have same histidine as of native. What is the specialty with this proline? Okay, you need to know. Proline is the amino acid which are mainly reason for the alpha helix and beta sheet breaking. Okay, in this figure you can see The red one is the native sequence with histidine thing. It might have the beta sheet. But when you insert your proline in this position, this beta sheet is being broken down into coil. Okay. So beta sheets and alpha helix are the one which is responsible to maintain the stability of the protein, whereas your coil loses its makes the protein to lose its stability. Okay. Once stability is lost, your protein might not be stable. When you're going to give your drug interaction in this region, this might not be going to work out properly. Your drug might not interact properly here. It might not work out properly here. It might have loose binding. It might get detached easily and your drug gets wasted. So this is the reason why you need to focus on single mutations, because this one single mutation can make a big change. Consider this to be a active site. Suppose if your drug is being bound here, what will happen when it's going to be having a coil instead of this beta sheet? It doesn't work out. Okay, your entire drug discovery process, which you have been taken for many years, it's going to be waste of time. So you need to be carefully identifying which are the variable regions. Variable region in sense they are more prone to mutations often. This A might change to C, it might change to T, it might change to C, T additions. So this might not be conserved. So when you are trying to focus on the drug discovery process, you need to find out some conserved regions of amino acids. So once you have conserved amino acid region, the drug is going to be strong at the position. So I can consider this first tree as my conserved region. So I can give you a drug binding here instead of here. Because if I'm going to give my drug here, one day or other, it might prone to mutation easily and it might chop my drug out of the protein binding. So I need to be more careful in the drug discovery process. Uh, and you need to understand more about the propensity of these amino acids. Okay, this is figure 1 and figure 2, where figure 1 tells about the role of each amino acids in formation of alpha helix, and this is the diagram B shows the role of each amino acids in the formation of beta sheets in a protein. Okay, so when you see this peak, there's methionine is in the higher level, alanine in higher level, and glutamine and glutamate. So these are in the higher level. So it means that when these four amino acids are going to be there, they are ready to be formed as alpha helix. Okay. In the case of beta sheets, you might see the role of valine is higher. So valine can form beta sheet. Isoleucine can form a isoleucine can make a good beta sheets. Cysteine can make a good beta sheet. Those stuff. As we have discussed in the previous slide, you can see the role of proline. Here's the 1, 2, 3, fifth one. Proline is here. In this case, you can see proline as very weaker. This pink one. This is as a very weaker propensity to make a alpha helix as well as beta sheet. So when this amino acid is going to change from methionine to proline, or alanine to proline, or valine to proline, or cysteine to proline, it's going to be a chop down, or it's going to have a transformation of beta sheet or the alpha helix to the coils. So once your active site as this this beta sheet or alpha helix, and if, because of the mutation, if they're going to convert into the coils, your drug is not going to work anymore. Your drug loses its tendency to bind with the alpha helix and beta sheets. So you should be more focusing on you should make sure that there is no mutations on your active sites. When you say active sites are binding site, it should be free from the mutations, especially the missense mutations. So they might entirely change your protein structure. So your drug doesn't work out anymore. So your DNA sequence is there. DNA sequence translates to give you protein sequence. So with this protein sequence, I can make a protein structure. I can build the 3D structure either by the computational approach, or I can use X-ray crystallography. I can use NMR. I can use electron microscope, any method to convert this protein sequence into a protein structure. So once I know my protein structure, I can compare what are the structures are closer to this protein structure, and I can know the protein function. So when sequence is going to be same, I will have the similar structure. If similar protein sequences, if the protein sequences are going to be similar, I'll have a similar protein structure. If protein structures are similar, the protein function will be similar. So this protein structure plays an intermediate role between the sequence and function. So you should be very clear. Similar sequence gives you similar structure. Similar structure of your protein gives protein similar function. Okay. So this is the technique where you're going to use in the drug discovery and development. Okay. So drug discovery and development is a long way process. It's going to take many years, maybe 10, 15, even 20 years. Okay. First thing is you need to identify a disease. Then you need to isolate your protein. When I say isolate your protein, you should know what is the protein going to be responsible for. Suppose if this person is going to have the breast cancer, you need to chop out with the BRCA protein or AKT or PIK3CA, whatever protein that is going to be responsible for this breast cancer. Then you need to know about the which drugs that are going to be efficient. When you say efficient drugs, there might be few or many drugs which is already in the market. You should know what is the efficacy, and you also should know about what are the similar compounds which are going to be in the public databases like your PubChem or Drug Bank, so that it'll be able to readily search against these databases. So once we are done with this computational approach, then we can go with the preclinical testing. Again, it's going to take 1 to 3 years, where we'll be testing on the living organisms like your mice, rat, or in the case of higher cases, people use monkeys to make their drug validations. So once this is going to be done, we need to go with the scale-up. So here initially we'll be using only the small quantity. We'll have synthesis only the small fragments or small quantity amount of the drugs. You would have tested on animals. So once the animal testing is successful, we will be going with the scale-up on the formulations, and we'll be trying with the clinical phases, and we'll file the IPR. With that, we'll be going with the clinical trials with a small number of patients, and then we'll be making it FDA approval one and things. So when you see this entire process, it's going to take almost 10 to 20 years, a minimum. Okay. So when you start with somewhere your hypothesis, and when your drug comes, it's going to be not a single day or a single week. It's going to be years. It's going to be more than 15, 20 years. Okay. So we are going to restrict ourselves between this identification of disease and the animal trial. So what we do in between this, here is the somewhere where you are trying to use your computer aided drug designing approach. With this computer aided, what we can do, what we can contribute to the society to make drug formulations. Okay. So to isolate a protein, you need to have genomics, proteomics, biopharma knowledge. Then we need to have high throughput sequencing. High throughput sequencing is where you try to have you try to sequence the protein, as well as you try to get the millions of compounds in a database, or you try to have it in your local data bank, and you try to see the interactions either by your screening techniques like docking, and you do the visual screening techniques. Once visual screening technique which I was talking, and once visual screening is done, you can go with the computational chemistry, where you try to change the moieties. You just try to play with the atoms. What happens when H is changed to C, when C is changed to O, when sulfur is changed to nitrogen. So you just try to play some combinatorial chemistry approach. Then you try to go with the molecular modeling. Molecular modeling technique helps you to understand the interaction between this identified compound. Until it has been approved by FDA, it cannot be called as a drug. It will be compound as it is. It will be called as a lead compound. Okay. So this compound, what happens when it interacts with the protein of our interest? So those can be studied with the molecular modeling approach. So once it has been successful, there are many techniques which are coming up in computational itself to evaluate your ADME models, that is your absorption, digestion, metabolism, and excretion things. So all this could be studied within our computer-aided drug discovery thing. So what is what is in silico drug designing? In silico drug designing is nothing but we are going to just use a computer or computer simulations in our drug discovery process. Okay. So we'll be using basically a bioinformatics approach. So the first process with the computer-aided drug discovery or in silico drug discovery is virtual screening. Virtual screening is nothing but you're going to screen all the compounds which are available in the market in the databases against the disease of our interest. When I say disease of our interest, you should know which exact protein is going to be responsible for the disease. Okay, consider if you're going to have your breast cancer, as we have told in the previous example, you should know what are the proteins responsible for that. You should get the mutation list. Then you need to get what are the cancer drugs which are available. Then you should know what are the similar compounds which are available in the public databases like your PubChem, Zinc database, Drug Bank, etc. And then you can go with the screening approach. Okay, this virtual screening can be of two types. One can be a structure-based virtual discovery virtual screening, and other one can be the ligand-based virtual screening. Okay, so when I say structural-based virtual screening and ligand-based virtual screening, these are going to be two different aspects, but they try to bring out a lead compound, and these lead compound has to be tested in vitro as well as in vivo studies. So in the case of uh, uh, structural based drug virtual screening, which is more commonly used today, people have this ligand as uh, in the databases, and they try to randomly search against the protein. They need to have only the protein sequence. They convert the protein sequence into the protein structure. They try to get the drugs or the chemical compounds from the public databases. They try to see which other drugs or which other compounds are going to interact with the protein of my interest. So once it is going to have show some interactions, I can go after virtual screening. I can go with the molecular docking where I make a very precise study on the particular grid study. So I'll be fixing my active pockets and I'll be making the same compound to react over this protein structure. So once this protein structure is being docking process is over, I can take that docking results to the molecular dynamic simulations. Molecular dynamic simulation is nothing but you're going to just simulate the protein drug complex in the artificial environment. Consider your body is having a 70% of water and you have temperature within you, you have some pressure. So we are going to provide everything in artificially with the computer techniques like your GROMACS or Amber, Charm. There are many different softwares. So you can just immerse this protein structure and you can with the parameters, fixed parameters of your temperature, pressure, and other volumes, you can see what exactly happens, how this protein is going to react over this compounds. This is going to be the NTFBIX table. Okay, so that's what I was telling about the structure-based drug designing. So you need to see about the prediction of the druggability. Then you need to see the docking-based visual screening. Then you need to have structure-based pharmacophores. Then you have molecular dynamics. Then you have de novo design. Suppose if you're not going to have some structure for this protein. So consider you don't have a protein structure, then it becomes the difficult task, and people go with the ligand-based drug discovery or virtual screening, where they use QSAR and other 2D similar properties, scaffold hopping, and they try to bring up this compound, and they try to evaluate somewhere else with the molecular docking again to confirm whether this drug which is obtained from the ligand-based virtual screening again shows a better interaction with the control the protein, because we need to see exactly what happens when my drug enters the body, right? Your body cannot be taking all the drugs inside and pooping out or making some side effects. You should know what exactly happens when my protein and the compound which is administered makes a reaction. Only then I can come to a conclusion that whether this drug is going to be a curable one or not curable one. So this is the outline what is molecular docking. Molecular docking in sense, you have say protein, then you have millions of compound like this, the blue, violet, and brown. This is going to be some chemical database, consider as a PubChem or a Zinc database. So you're just going to randomly fix all this into the your protein of interest. Okay. In this case, you might see this blue one is going to fit a best one, not the other ones. So I'll be telling that this blue one can be the better compound for the interaction, or it can be a lead compound for my study. So I'll be taking this lead compound and I'll be doing a active site based target search. And with the active site, I would have fixed and I would have made my ligand, which I obtained from the virtual screening, to bind it here. This is going to be the most suitable one. And I'm going to fix a grid and I'm going to say, yes, this is my particular pocket, this is my active site, and this is where my drug is going to interact. But in real life scenario, this might have some changes, but we try to make it more appropriate and more secured as much as possible. So that's the thing where you're going to use molecular docking. So consider this case. This is where we are going to see the influence of mutation. So what we have seen in the previous slide was what is mutation, impact of mutations, types of mutations. Then we have seen about the drug discovery process. Then we have seen about the influence and impacts of computer-aided drug discovery. But this is going to be the influence of mutation on the drug discovery. As we have discussed earlier, this drug discovery process is going to take a long time, maybe some 20 years even. Okay, there might be a native protein. This is going to be a healthy one. This green one is going to be a healthy individual. This is going to be the pink one is going to be the mutation of arginine. Suppose you consider the native is going to be leucine amino acid. So this leucine is being converted to arginine, and this arginine is getting some disease. Maybe, as I told you earlier, might be breast cancer. So over the time period to treat this breast cancer, I have designed a drug this way, something like a rocket. Okay. So my active pocket is going to be this hollow one. I have designed my drug in such a way it looks similar to this. So after 6.5 plus 7.5, 15 years of time, and I have made this as a inhibitor for this arginine to treat the disease. But what happens in this scenario is arginine might be getting resistance and might have been changed to proline itself. It might not be same due to we might be exposed to many different UV, many different environmental factors. So your amino acids are not going to be same. They might have some changes. So this drug, which have been initially developed for arginine, might not work for proline over the time period. So when this is going to be the scenario, it is called drug resistance. And this is the same case. A person A might have the mutation with arginine and has breast cancer. A person B might have the proline in the breast cancer. This drug might not work exactly. This drug works exclusively only for arginine. After identification of this drug for 15 to 20 years, this is going to be particular for arginine. If you say people with arginine are more after the 20 years of time, which has been invested on FDA approval, then it's fine. If people are going to get mutated or going to be getting exposed to some other mutation, the drug is not going to work. That's the very pathetic thing here in the field of drug discovery. You might invest millions of your dollars, and you can invest tons and tons of hours and labor work. But when the mutation is going to be very dramatic in the human or in the even in the viruses in the bacteria, it's not going to be the very good case. It's going to be it's not going to be very fair here. It's going to be not working out with any other mutations than the mutation which you're focusing. It might have some effect with some other amino acids. It might be having some less effects, but it is going to have only the efficient but best effect only with arginine, not with any other amino acids. So you people might have heard about the antibiotic resistance, which has been developed in India. India stands as not only in India, all many other countries with higher population, they rank somewhere top for the antibiotic resistance. This is because your bacteria, which is getting highly mutated, they are getting highly mutated and they're getting the properties of resistance every day because of the unprescribed drugs which you're taking without any prescription or without any consultation with the doctor. Your bacteria is getting changes in the structure and they're trying to mutate itself to get resistance from the drugs. So consider this is the porins. This is the cell membrane, and this is the porins, and this is my protein of target. Okay. So my drug has to enter this protein and need to chop this. So that will be my ultimate aim. So once this enzyme has been chopped, consider this is going to be a NDM or beta lactamase enzymes. So my beta lactam I insert here and I can chop it. So this enzyme, this cell is going to cleave and there is going to be no effect. But what happens over the time period? This porins, this yellow one you see, right? The entry point, like a doorstep. So this is getting mutated highly. So you can see this open conformation of the porin is getting closed conformation. This might be due to the mutations. So when this porins are getting mutated, this door is going to close. Whereas when I discover my new drug or whichever drug which is being currently in the market, like your doripenum or meropenem, imipenem, carbapenem, whatever it is, it cannot be entering the porins. Only when it enters the porins, it can chop this beta-lactam enzymes. This is not happening exactly. So this is not going to get interacted here. It's not going to chop out. That's more pathetic again. So this antibiotic resistance is also because of these mutations. I can show you this. So what could be the solution for this mutation thing. So we are moving to the era of personalized medicine, though personalized medicine is not much feasible with this economic conditions and with the science and the high population in India. But we are trying to gradually move to the era of personalized medicine, where people will be getting each one will be getting a particular drug. They won't be getting the uh, generic drug where what you call as paracetamol or some other things. You cannot get it just like that, where everyone can use it. Consider the patient A. Patient A is having a mutation. This mutation is called as mutation A. So the person has to exclusively take drug A. In the case of patient B, there might be a mutation called mutation B. You need to take a drug called drug B. When you're going to give a drug A to the patient B or drug B to the patient A, it might not work out. This is called personalized medicine. Each and every individual needs to know about this gene sequence. It'll soon become like your Aadhaar card or your green citizenship, something like that. You'll be given a chip where your entire gene makeup will be given in a chip. Whenever you go to your doctor or consultant, you just need to give the chip. Doctor will read the chip and he'll tell you what is the DNA pattern on what is gene diseases, so that they can prescribe you a personalized drug, whatever you need. At least, if not for each individual person, it might be for your population, might be for a South Asian population, might be for European population, for American population. So your drug might get more personalized to the individuals. But again, I'm telling you, this is going to take a lot of time. It is going to consume more money, as well as it needs to go with more ethical clearance, because you cannot have the genetic makeup of everyone in a chip. Once if your chip is going to be misused, you get into your trouble, because people will know about your genetic pattern, what disease you might get at 40 years, what might be at 50 years. So your insurance claim might be an issue. So there are many things to handle there with the ethical clearance. So this is one example from our research lab. So what we have done is we have tried to give we have tried to give you a drug for 3 different mutations in a single protein, at a single position. This 1047 of PIK3CA protein. PIK3CA protein is responsible for the breast cancer, and histidine at 1047 is a hotspot position, which can be mutated to arginine, leucine, and tyrosine. Okay, so these 3 are there: yellow, orange, green, and purple. So one is native, other 3 are mutations, protein with mutation. And we have tried to give you a Watmanin. Watmanin is a drug which can be used to treat the breast cancer, which is caused by PIK3CA exclusively. So upon this, we have done a molecular dynamics simulation. This is at 0 nanosecond, and this is the B diagram at 100 nanoseconds. Okay, so we have tried to see what is the structural change of these mutations with the role of Watman in the drug. So when I see histidine, it is having only the coil. Tyrosine, again, it is having only the coil. The leucine, it has tried to form alpha helix, but this H1047R, the histidine to arginine, it has formed beta sheet. You can see that here. It is the diagram. It is A. It is only coil everywhere, but here its coil is being turned to alpha helix and beta sheet. So the single point mutation needs single drug. This is where I call as personalized medicine. This Watmanin may not be an effective drug in the case of native one. It might not be case of tyrosine. It might not be a good working in the case of leucine. But when a person is having arginine, histidine to arginine mutation, this Watmanin is going to exactly work. So this is where personalized medicine is going to come into the role. So one more example of this microbiological aspect, people might be interested. This is the pouring chamber cell membrane. The drugs are going to be inserted. I have shown you right the closed configuration and the open configuration in the previous slides. So this is the native. The native, if you see, there are going to be many coils. This is the LS view, and this is the vertical view. In the horizontal, I have just made to show what is in the center. So you can see that there are many coils here. Only one alpha helix is here, so that when I put your drug inside, the drug goes directly inside. From year to year, it can come with your protein and target, and it can chop the cell. But in the case of mutant, it is trying to form many alpha helixes. It is trying to be as a gatekeeping one. So once the drug is going to be entered here, the alpha helixes are going to catch up this drug, and they're going to bind within the proteins, within the porins here, and they're not going to enter anymore. So once they're not going to enter, the cell cannot be cleaved, the disease will not be treated. So this is the reason where you get antimicrobial resistance. This is one mechanism. There are many mechanisms like this. You have efflux mechanism, you have beta lactamase mechanism, you have other mechanisms in this antimicrobial area. One interesting, this is porins. So porins try to change the structure in order to keep the drug from the entry. So you people might be interested with the COVID research also. So when people are working with the COVID drugs, even COVID is getting highly mutated every day. So this is the data which I've taken from WHO bulletin, where you can see this A is converted to G in 541 cases, G is converted to A in 473 cases, A to C, C to A, C to T, T to C, everywhere. So transition and translation, everything has been continuously occurring in this COVID cases, and it's going to give, it is giving a rise to clades. When I say clades, these are different types of mutations and different types of strains. So these are going to be the serious mutations which are being taken continuously getting arose in the COVID-19, and they are being as a new different species. So every time when you need to discover a new drug, you need to be focusing on what happens when it is in the D614G, what happens when it's going to be a double mutation here, what happens when it's a triple mutation, what happens when L84S is there. So the drug activity of each, if you're going to discover a drug, maybe X or Y drug, it need to satisfy all these cases. Only then it goes to the global market, or it might not go to a global market, whereas it can be used as a prescription medicine for a particular area. Suppose if you see this L3006F is there, this is in China exclusively. You can treat your drug to treat only this mutation and can be used only for this local population, may not be working efficiently in all the cases. So this is the chart showing the mutations in the COVID case exclusively. Okay, if you see this NSP, this is non-structural proteins. When I say NSP, it is mean non-structural proteins. RDRP is RNA-dependent polymerase and helicase. These are the proteins of COVID. If you see missense mutation, there are more than 1,000 mutations. That is 1,905 mutations has been reported in WHO till date. Okay, so it means that the mutations are being very frequent and very highly being evolving. So these might tend to drug resistance. Okay, so when there's going to be this type of mutations highly evolving, you will be having a severe effect with COVID. So people who are working in this drug discovery field, they need to be focusing on this area also. They, instead of not in addition to this native protein condition, they need to see what happens in the missense mutation condition and the other conditions, other mutation condition also, so that your drug might be a good choice to work on all the conditions. Because RDRP is the one which is being currently focused with the remdesivir and other drugs, but still this remdesivir is getting highly mutated with 194 cases. So when it comes to the market, it might have some less efficacy with patients in some zones, or it might work very good also. That's a different issue. But we need to consider that if it is working, it's not an issue. Suppose if it is not working, we might need to see the patient sample. We need to see why this is working in the patient A and it is not working in the patient B. Then we need to consider all this. This is the reason why I was focusing more on missense mutation. See, number of missense mutation is highly high in number when compared to the deletion or insertion or deletion, insertion, frame shift. So these are going to be very rare thing which is going to occur, but your missense mutation are going to be very frequent one which occurs. Suppose if it is going to be a synonymous mutations, it's fine, no issues, because synonymous mutations are going to give you the same amino acids. They're going to give you the if it's going to be alanine, it's going to be the same alanine after the mutation. So there's not going to be much change here, but missense mutation are going to be the crucial one in the case of SARS-CoV-2 also. So this is one interesting factor with the this viral clade distribution in India. Okay, this is data taken from the Ministry of Health and Science a month ago. This is taken on 7th June 7th. There is 1 month ago almost. Okay, So you need to see there are different clades which have been inside the India itself. Okay, when you see the entire globe, those many mutations are there. But when you see in India, you have at least 7 different types of clades which has been already evolved within India because of this mutation. When I say S clade, it is having L84S mutation, that is leucine at 84 is being converted to serine. In V mutation, glycine is converted to valine. In I clade, valine is converted to isoleucine. In the G clade, aspartic acid is converted to glutamine. Glycine. GR clade, glycine is converted to arginine. GH clade, glutamine is converted to histidine, and so on. So maybe before 1 month, this is the case. Today, we might have increased the case also because we have some other frequency for the others. So this might be some other evolving mutation as well. So it's going to be a mixture of things. So you might need to consider more about the personalized medicine. You need to about sequencing of which type of SARS-CoV-2 is being affected with each patient. So you might need to have consideration on the personalized medicine also. So with this case, with this example, do you think COVID drug to treat all these clades will be rising very soon, or it might be late? So it's a question up to you people. You people are in the level to think about it, and it's up to your choice. Thank you. So I need to sincerely thank the organizers, the Department of Biotechnology, Ramaiah Institute of Technology, Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry, Faculty of Pharmacy, Ramaiah University of Applied Sciences. I need to also thank the IEEE EMBS MSRIT student chapter. I need to thank the Student Society of Biotechnologists. Special thanks to the organizing chairs, organizing co-chairs, coordinators, and especially the patient listeners. Because despite of this lockdown, you people are trying to show some interest in learning things. So I really have to thank to you. I need to express my gratitude to you people always. Last but not least, I need to thank my research team as well. Thank you, people.
Yes, thank you, Thirmal sir, for your wonderful explanation. People are very happy by attending your session. A lot have commented. Very informative, very useful session. Thank you so much for patience and your sharing towards your knowledge. What are the things you have learned? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pasaman. Thank you so much.
So here are some questions which have been raised by our peoples, our participants, delegates, whatever the thing may be. They have raised some questions. So here are some few questions. Is there a way to make genome permanently resistant to mutations?
No way.
No way.
Because mutations can be beneficial as well as it can be harmful. If you're going to permanently restrict, you might not have any beneficial activity also. For example, we might have seen our ancestors, they have some hairs in their ears because to avoid the pollutions which is going inside the ears. But gradually with the mutation, we don't have hairs in our ears. If people in those days, their head might be small. So gradually when you see people today, their heads are bigger with the mutations. They're trying to get some resistance. They're trying to adapt themselves. So there is no way to get ourselves permanently avoiding the mutation. It's not possible.
So fine. So mutation is having both positive and negative, like our technical world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How can I do crossover and mutation life cycle cast data using genetic algorithm? I repeat, how can I do crossover and mutation life cycle cast data using genetic algorithm?
Actually, I'm not expert in this field, but I can give you some comments on that. When you say about this, you need to have your proper data set first, because getting the proper data set of the crossovers, I don't find any databases are exclusively having for this type of mutations or crossovers. So once you have a clean data, then you can move the genetic algorithm studies. There are many plugins within the Python and your R programming where they have ready-made plugins to do this. I'm not expert in this field, but this can be a suggestion.
We can take as a suggestion and we can work out. So the next question, can we hypothesis what the next mutation will be? For example, lysine to which amino acid probably is there? As SARS had mutated to COVID in around 10 years with a specific 13 specific mutation in RBM. If so, how to detect it before it occurrence and be prepared for a drug. So in the simple way, I can say, so which amino acid will get mutated, in which way it will get mutated. Example, lysine may convert it to which amino acid. So if we can predict early, so we can able to get ready for the upcoming diseases or whatever the situation may be. We will be ready.
Yes, Dr.
So
Parasuraman.
they are asking a question on what basis it is getting mutated. Which the amino acid is getting mutated to another amino acid. So on what basis?
So the very crucial thing is the third codon in the third letter in the codon. It is the first one to get always mutated. So if I see this AUG and second AUG, okay.
Okay.
Can you see my screen? Okay. This G is there, no, the third one.
Yeah.
This is the one which is going to be most frequently mutated than this A and U.
Okay.
So only thing is we need to know what if G is converted to T, what it can give you. If G is converted to A, what it can give you. G to U, what it can give.
Okay.
So that could be the easiest one because other two are going to be taking longer duration. But one more issue is that for one amino acid, you have these three probabilities. Suppose consider you have a PAK3CA protein. The size is around 1069. So you have 1069 into three combinations. So it's going to be a highly frequent thing.
Fine. And we'll pass on to the next question. In case of cancer, if you are able to find the location of mutation, is it possible to reverse the mutation and make all cells in the body undergo reverse mutation to become normal? Is there any way? Because cancer cells are getting mutated and then it's growing like anything. So they're raising a question: is there any way to get back to the mutation?
From my view, I can tell that it might not be possible because I'll tell you the reason. Because the day when you're going to identify this mutation, the other mutations might be already in the progress. Your DNA polymerase would have given rise to the other mechanisms. So consider if alanine is going to change to arginine, the next amino acid will be changed directly.
Fine.
Again, getting to convert entire amino acid makeup is not possible. That's the reason we are going with drug chemotherapy here.
Cool. So the next question is how to determine which amino acid impart what property to proteins like helical, sheet, or rigid or flexible structures, etc. Is there any reference? Please let me know.
I was showing you, the proponicity thing. I'll show you one second. This is data taken from this ScoopFold server. This is for the structure protein server. So they have told you about what is the role of each amino acids, whether to make the alpha helix or beta sheets. So you can be interested in this.
Okay. Yes. So based on that, we can able to predict.
Yeah, the same Scoop server paper, they have told about the exposed and buried also. So you'll understand if the amino acid is going to be there, whether it will be in the exposed region of the protein or if it will be in the buried region of protein. So once you have that data also, you can find the drug more efficiently.
Cool. Nice. And then the next question is, does a neutral mutation in a protein can hinder any possible ligand interaction with that protein during docking if the protein function is not compromised as it is the neutral mutation?
When you say neutral mutation, there is no change in amino acid, right? So there is no effect on the docking because in docking you'll be concentrating only on amino acids. So neutral amino acids doesn't have anything to play with the docking interference.
So this is the question which is related to COVID because the government and other organizations, they are saying no, we'll be launching the vaccine within some 2 months, 3 months. No.
Yes.
They are saying. And in your slide, you have shown for a disease, for a drug effective disease, it will take 2 to 5 years finding a drug effective, right? So based on that, a person have raised a question. Finding a drug effective for a disease takes 2 to 5 years. During COVID, can we say that we have overcome this time period? And in future, can we use to find a new drug within a few months? Is it possible to find a new drugs within a few months?
In case of COVID, people are not going with the drug discovery. I want to make it very clear. People are going with the drug repurposing. Okay, they are just trying to use a drug which is already available for some other disease. They are trying to see whether it's going to work. It means that still this formulation and scale up, it's already completed. When you see the remdesivir or hydroxychloroquine, any of the drugs like flavinavir, as everything been have been already successfully completed these stages. They have passed the animal clearance, they have passed the scale up and formulation, everything. They are being used for some other diseases. Suppose if you see hydroxychloroquine, it has been used for anti-malarial activity. If you see for remdesivir, it has been used for Ebola. So they're just trying to take all those safety drugs and they're seeing whether it can be worked for COVID. So it is taking only this 2 to 10 years of time. It's not going to take this entire fetch of time.
So it is related to like a drug repurposing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Drug repurposing.
Yes. So another question is there any sold mutation databases for the known proteins of Homo sapiens which gives as known mutations in any certain protein reported so far?
Yeah, you have many
databases. Any databases available for mutated proteins, for that too, especially for Homo sapiens?
They are asking about the mutated structure or mutated sequence. Any idea? Okay. If I say about mutation
proteins,
sequence,
general they have asked us a protein.
You can just go with the protein data bank and you can get the mutated structure if it has been deposited. If not, you can take the mutated sequence from the NCBI, Cleanware, UniProt, Cosmic databases, HGMD. There are many databases exclusive for mutations. You can find the particular mutation. You can pinpoint the mutation in the modeling servers. Either you're going to use Modeler, a Swiss model, or a Scoop, whatever it is. You just fix this mutation amino acid and you can get a model of it.
Cool. So the next question is, sir, if it takes 10 to 20 years of a drug to come out in the market, people are talking about precision medicine. What's your view on that?
Yes, it might take 10 to 20 years again. No other go. Because we need to see, when you see about the COVID, it is urgent of the day. You need to treat it in the next month or next week. But when you talk about precision medicine, it's a long-term process because first you need to get the genome sequence of individual patients first. That itself is going to be a big task. But whereas you see the Middle Eastern countries where population is very less, people have made a good data bank with each people is having their own genome sequence. But in case of a country like India, first you need to go with the entire genome makeup. That is, you need to do the NGS of entire each and every individual. That is going to be a big task. Then we need to identify the mutation. Then we need to go with the drug. So it's going to be a time-consuming, but it might be a talk of the area in next 20 to 30 years.
Fine. Is precision and personalized medicines are synonyms?
Probably might. So. It's not actually the right term. In right term, you can call it as generic versus personalized medicine.
Yes. So what is the reason for the continuous mutation on COVID-19? Is it pleomorphic like HIV? As you said, no, many forms of COVID are available. Why it is getting mutated? What might be the reason? Because it is getting regular mutation.
I don't have a clear idea on this, but this might be due to the change in population or change in the medical pattern which we take, maybe the food even, because viruses are always easily prone to mutations every time, rather when you compare with your human or other species.
Okay. So a sickle cell anemia harmful because it's due to the point mutation. They're asking, we have said about different mutations, from point mutation and some other mutation. Is this point mutation is much more harmful?
Yeah, point mutation is your missense mutation, which we are talking in the end slide.
Yeah.
It's going to make up the entire, your drug is not going to work out properly. That's the main thing with the missense mutation.
Okay. And then next one is, only the amino acid is responsible for all mutation or else any other factors which is affecting for mutations? Only the amino acids or else any other thing?
No, it will be starting from your nucleotides. It's not directly from the amino acids. So once your amino acids are going to have the issue, when it translates, it gets to the amino acids. So base reason is your nucleotides.
Okay. So the next question is, how to know the site of mutation in the amino acid sequence? Is there any way to find out the? Is there any way to find the site of mutation in the amino acid sequence?
I'm not clear with the question whether it's asking for the position or something else. Because if we want to position, you need to have the clear either literature review, or you can use the public database like UniProt or NCBI, HGMD, Cosmic database, where mutations being deposited regularly.
Okay. So, and some two more questions, last two questions.
Sure, doctor.
Can mutation be done artificially?
Yes, you can induce directly some ultraviolet radiations or something. You can induce in a person. But is asking about the living system, or is asking about the in the area of computer-aided drug discovery? I'm not sure. If it's in the computer-aided drug discovery, you can go with the modeling techniques and induce the mutations. In the real life, you need to give some radiations or some other things to alter the DNA genetic pattern.
Fine. Is there any strategy to exploit the DNA repair system to reverse the mutation in a personalized manner? As you answered no for the first. Yes. And then last, can the ultrasound of a pregnant woman can lead to fetus mutation?
I don't have any idea, because people have told that there are no effects and people are being using the technique. So it's still in research. We need to understand that. Science cannot be answered in a single day on this ultrasonic things.
Obviously. Fine. So it's a nice presentation and nice interaction with you, Thirmal sir. And people have been enjoyed. They have posted very positive comments. Nice presentation, very informative sessions. So happy to hear from the delegates. And thank you so much for spending your valuable time during this COVID situation. And thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, doctor.